If you look, we're looking at Psalm 27. And when I look at Psalm 27, the first line really kind of gives us a good summary of what God's talking about here, or what the psalmist is talking about, David. The Lord is my light, my salvation. Why should I be afraid? The Lord is my fortress, protecting me from danger, so why should I tremble? So what if we look at this statement, the Lord is my light, my salvation, my stronghold. What is he actually saying? And I think if we continue on the psalm, he kind of gives us the details about what he's saying. But if we just think about that real quick, it's more than just physical safety. Saying I'm trusting God for light. What does light do for us? I got up in the middle of the night to let the dog out last night because she's getting old, and like some of us who get old, she has to go to the bathroom more often. And so somebody, I don't know who, took the night light out of the hallway at the top of the stairs that was plugged in there, and so it was really dark, and I don't have a conversation at home to figure out who took that out. But it was really dark, and I made it to the bottom of the stairs, and I let her out, and then I let her back in, and I was going back up the stairs, and my mom's walker for downstairs sits right at the bottom of the stairs, and it's been there for months, and I just happened, it was dark enough, I stubbed my toe on it. It's okay, Mom, it's not your fault. But a little bit of light would have made a lot of difference. Maybe not, because sometimes I'm just clumsy and my eyes don't work that well, and I can still stub my toe even if there's light. But I kind of think the light might have made a little bit of difference. It just seemed a little darker than usual, and I couldn't figure out why. And normally I'm pretty conscious that there's something there, but I missed it. So light helps us to see what's going on, right? Light helps us to avoid stubbing our toes, and sometimes worse, because we get to see what obstacles are in front of us. Light gives us, it takes care of some of our fears, right? When you were a kid, were you afraid of the dark? I was afraid of the dark. I wasn't afraid of the dark. I was afraid of what I couldn't see because it was dark. And what's the solution when you're afraid of what you can't see because it's dark? You turn a light on. And then either you see, oh, there's nothing there, or you see, wow, there is something I should be afraid of, which hopefully is more rare. But you turn the light on. You know, I have this silly thing that I carry around with me that interrupts my life. But there's one, I remember when I first got a mobile phone, one of the first ones that I got had this weird feature that I thought, well, why in the world would you ever want that? And it was this. You couldn't turn it on this way, but it had one of these. And I thought, why do you want a light on your phone? Don't you use that for like talking to people? What do you need? And you know what I discovered is, I use that stupid thing more than any other feature. And it's still to this day, I might as well just have a flashlight I carry around in my pocket and get rid of the phone altogether, because I use the flashlight so much more than I ever use it for anything else. Everything else is an inconvenience. The flashlight is actually a wonderful thing. Because there's so many times when a little bit of light makes a lot of difference. It makes a lot of difference. So the Lord is my light. A little bit of God in our lives makes a big difference. Makes a big difference. My salvation. Lord is my salvation. When everything else is uncertain, I can trust Him. Right? When it feels like I'm in trouble, and we had a phrase that, I don't know who started it, but one of my college roommates, when things got a little bit difficult and hairy, we would say, you're in deep weeds. You ever tried to hike or walk through deep weeds? Like when you have bed straw and things that are clinging to the, and it's like you can get through it, but it's really tiring and irritating. And when life gets to be in deep weeds, when you're in over your head, when you're feeling helpless, just because life is overwhelming, He's there, and He's got it. He's in control. He's my salvation. I don't think the psalmist is just talking about, oh, well, I'll go to heaven when I die. Sometimes we reduce salvation to that. I believe God being our salvation is so much more practical for this life, for our day-to-day life. Because I don't know about you, but I often, and maybe as a pastor I'm not supposed to feel that way, but I'm often overwhelmed with life. Just too many things going on, being pulled in too many directions, I think we are so much aware of our problems for some reason that it just seems like the problems get so big. And I need to remember, the Lord is my salvation. He's bigger than any problem I could ever have. He's my stronghold. I don't think we think too much of stronghold terms, and but back in the day, strongholds were kind of important. When you lived in a very uncertain world, and where the people that you're living with could be attacked by other people, or for whatever reason. My wife, Tina, grew up in a town, or there's two towns in Switzerland where one at Neuhausen and Schaffhausen, and they're kind of connected. And in Schaffhausen they have a big castle on the hill called the Munot, and it's round. It's a famous castle because it's a unique kind of architecture. But if you go into the Munot, you realize it was designed so that everybody in the town could go into that thing for safety. It's like wheelchair accessible, but it's really horse and cart accessible. So it doesn't have stairs. It has this big sweeping ramp that goes around, so you could put all your possessions on a cart and take your horse and everything right in there. And so if the town was being attacked, everybody could just go in there and be safe for a time. And they got water, they got a well, they would have kept some provisions in there. They could and so this idea of a stronghold, God has this place where you can go when life is not only overwhelming but threatening. When you feel under threat by something. When you get a letter from the IRS. You ever had a letter? Even when it's not a bad thing, you get that envelope that says IRS on it, and you kind of go, oh. You experience that? Like, I don't want to deal with this. Did I do something wrong? I tried my best. When we feel under threat, and we don't often think about the threats, but we live in a day and age where we, even if the threats aren't real, we sometimes feel under threat. So you watch the commercials for home security, right? Do you realize how rare home invasions are? The statistical probability that a stranger is going to invade your home is so rare. I'm not saying it never happens, but it is so rare that you don't really need a home security system. I don't have anything, if you're a thief and you're watching, I don't have anything valuable enough that is worth your time, okay? And if you just knock on the door, ring the doorbell, and you say you want it, I'm likely just to give it to you anyway, because it's not really worth my life or anybody else in my house either. So, I look at it this way: if somebody invades my home, they're having a life crisis. They're in a difficult situation. And I'm a pastor. That's just a ministry opportunity. Right? They need Jesus. They don't need anything I have. The only thing I have that they need is Jesus, right? We should think that way. But God is our stronghold. Jesus is our stronghold. You trust Him enough to be your stronghold? And it's interesting as we look at this psalm, some things that he brings out about this whole idea. The Lord is my light, my salvation, my fortress. Talks about when evil people, when they're enemies, when we're feeling under threat, even if there's a mighty army, even the IRS. God's bigger than the IRS. Did you know that? I don't know why they're in my head today, but I hope that's not a foreshadowing of something happening in my life. But then it's interesting because I want to get to how do we make this happen? How are we able to say with David that the Lord is my stronghold, the Lord is my salvation, the Lord is my light? How are we able to say that? And he tells us. So look at verse 4. The one thing that I ask of the Lord, so he says, the one thing that I want, the one thing that I do, so this is what makes this happen. That puts us in the position of God being our light, our salvation, our stronghold. So this is our part of the equation, right? So he's given us an example. This is what I do. So this one thing that I want, this one thing I ask the Lord, the one thing I seek the most, the one thing that I want the very most in my whole life, more than a new iPhone, more than a 100-inch TV, more than a new car, more than whatever this is the one thing that I want more than absolutely anything. More than kids who all turn out right and do what they're supposed to do. More than anything I want. This is what I want. To live life in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. Delighting in the Lord's perfections. And gazing at His beauty is how and meditating in His temple. It's interesting, he talks about God's temple, but you realize that when David wrote this, there was no physical temple. It's always astounded me. It didn't exist. It wasn't built yet. What is he talking about? He's obviously not talking about a physical place. He's talking about being present with God, in God's presence. Where is God? everywhere. So is being in His presence His problem or mine? It's mine. Well, or yours. Right? Because if I seek His presence, He's here. I just have to be aware. I have to enter a state of worship, a state of acknowledging His presence. And David says, if I could have one thing, I just want to meditate on God's presence. I just want to be in His presence. I just want to be with Him. I want to be that I'm just glad to be here with you, thing with God my whole life. That's how we make God our light, our salvation, and our stronghold. And he says, and then He'll conceal me when trouble comes. He'll hide me in that place, which is not a physical place, it's a spiritual place. He'll keep me elevated out of risk. The munot is in the highest place. Then I will hold my head high. At His sanctuary, at His presence in His place, I will offer sacrifices with shouts of joy. This is also the ultimate source of our well-being, our happiness, our joy, is God's presence in our life. You realize as an American, and we're coming up on a big anniversary as Americans, right? This year, was it 250? I remember 200. That's makes me old, right? So, you know what the best thing about America is? We have the right to pursue happiness. You know what the problem with Americans is? We're looking in all the wrong places. Because you're never going to be happy unless you have God's presence in your heart. Singing and praising the Lord with music. And then 7 and 8, it's all a very relational thing. It's like, what does God want? He says, seek my face. Seek a relationship with me. Seek a conversation, an interaction with me, and my heart responds likewise. And he describes this relationship with God, and that's even closer and more precious than a parent and a child. Even if my parents abandon me, God won't. We live with my mother and my mother-in-law, and because I'm getting old, they're getting even older, and increasingly they rely upon us for things in their life. And I kind of half joke that it's like having children, only in reverse. When you have children, they get up and they grow up and they become more independent. When you have parents, they become more and more dependent, which is a joyful and wonderful thing. But as a person, emotionally, what I've realized that this week, that is like, it's like a role reversal. I mean, you've trusted in your parents, right? And I felt this keenly when my grandmother passed away for some reason. It was like, oh wow, there's like a generation missing now, that it made me feel secure to know that grandparents have that way of making you feel secure, right? And when they're gone, it's like, ooh, now I must be an adult because my grandparents are, no matter how old you are, you go to grandma's house, you don't feel like an adult, right? And sometimes that's annoying, but when you're a teenager, that's annoying. When you become in your 20s, it's kind of nice to not have to be an adult once in a while. And when you're having to take care of a parent, number one, I recommend it because it is a wonderful thing. It's not easy, just like having children is not easy. And they know it. They may not remember tomorrow that I said it. No, I'm just kidding. They'll get me later. But that emotional thing, and to realize that God has that place, that He's never going to get old. His care for me, I'm never going to have to take care of Him. I have to. I don't like that word. I'll never get to take care of Him. He doesn't need me in that way. So even if your parents don't purposefully abandon you, they will. They will. Or they have. Some of you don't have any left. And you feel it. And you know that, well, God's always going to be there for me. And then we get into the light part. I think he kind of comes back to the light in verse 11. Teach me how to live. Lead me on the right path. Don't let me fall. I'm confident I will see the Lord's goodness. That's a visual thing. When we have His light, we see His goodness. So often the world shows us darkness, right? Watch the news, darkness. Go on the internet, darkness. The world shows us darkness. We need the light of God to show us His goodness. And then I love this part. I love this part. Don't forget this part. This part, we need this for the church. We need this today. We need to hold on to this. And he says, while I am here in the land of the living. We're just not sitting around in a cesspool waiting for God to come and do something about it. We're here by faith knowing that even though it's not perfect, God has good stuff going on, and there's good stuff around us, and we just need His light to see it. I'm tired of hearing about all the world's problems. I want to see God's goodness. I want to hear about what He's doing. I want to hear about His goodness. I want to hear about what He's doing because I believe from the bottom of my heart that His salvation is for me today. And His life is for me today. And His goodness is for me today. And that doesn't mean we're going to be healthy, wealthy, and, I'm not a prosperity theologian. But I do know that even in the hardness of life, His goodness is here for us. And it's around us, and we just have to be able to see it. I am confident I will see the Lord's goodness. And then I think Rick has brought up this in our conversations before the last verse. What is he? So we're supposed to be seeking His face. We're supposed to be seeking relationship. We're supposed to be, the thing we want most is His presence in our life. But then He gives us another action to do. So there's really two actions here, right? What's the second action, the last verse? Wait. Wait. Wait for it. Wait for it. Have you used a crosswalk lately? Anybody use a crosswalk lately? We don't really walk places as much as we used to, but if you press the button for a crosswalk, what does it say? It actually talks to you. It tells me my name. It's like, how does it know? It says, wait. I go, yeah, I'm here. But that's not what it means. It's telling you don't go yet because a truck might hit you if you do. They don't say that, but that's what it means. It's kind of what he's saying here. Wait. If you just go run off ahead, a truck might hit you. You got to let God tell you when to go. You got to trust it. Are you like me that when you hit the button, you're still looking at traffic? And you go, well, I could probably go early. There's nobody coming, right? You do it. But what if you don't see that one? And, sometimes it's hard to wait for God. Just like it's hard to wait for that thing, the light to change, to go. It's hard to wait. Be brave and courageous. Sometimes it takes bravery and courageous and to encourage to wait for God. When all the problems of life in the world become overwhelming, it takes bravery and courage to say, God's still got this. God still has good stuff. Lord, open my eyes that I can see the good things. Wait patiently. Bob and I were talking about Amazon, right? You use Amazon. Everybody uses Amazon, whether you like it or not. I'm just totally amazed at what you can get tomorrow or the same day, right? So I find myself making purchasing decisions on Amazon because, that one I got to wait for 2 weeks to get. I don't want that. I can find something that I can get sooner, right? Got to get good reviews and I got to get it now. So then if you look at something, you say, I really, sometimes there's something you really want this one, but it's, that one will be here May 21st. Like, that's like 2 weeks away. I can't wait 2 weeks. Who has to wait 2 weeks? Patience is not something that's encouraged culturally for us. I want it now. We're like a whole nation of 2-year-olds. But I want it now. And we're enabled, and it's like Amazon's like a spoiling parent. We want it now. Wait patiently for the Lord. God is not Santa Claus, and He's not Amazon. Sometimes He says, it's good for you to wait. It's good for you to wait. So I have another, before I'm going to let you do another discussion here. I'm going to add another one in because you've been sitting here a long time. So the first thing you got to do is stand up. So I don't know about you, but when I sit for a long time, my knees start getting stiff. Now Vern listens to me, and he of course, he's just waiting to be able to stand up. If you can, stand up. And then I want you to think about what difference has God's presence made in your life as far as your level of fear? Maybe this week. So is there some way that God's presence in your life has helped you not to be fearful? Okay? And if you can think of some, go find somebody, maybe somebody you shared with last time about your fears, but so bring God into your fears, not just your fears. So what difference does God's presence make in your level of fear? So let's do that, and then we'll come back.